how difficult it is to actually do business in England and the UK. The taxes is one thing, it's the bureaucracy and the time and the form filling and pieces of paper that cost so much money each time you get a new piece of paper for any type of transaction in the business world. You get bogged down in all of this transactional rubbish.
10,000 millionaires leaving every year or something to go to Dubai or wherever. But the middle ground can't do that. You know, the government needs to tax the wealthy people, companies that pay zero tax. But can we trust the government? If they, let's say they came up with a way of taxing the big businesses without them all leaving, can we then trust the government to deal with that and to redistribute that money to where it needs to go? Because building wealth through property isn't about chasing big deals and paydays. It's about owning assets that make money for you consistently. But figuring it all out on your own, that's where most people get stuck. That's why we created this Property Life membership. It's everything we wish we had when we started. Expert guidance, real-world case studies, and a private community of investors actually doing deals, not just talking about them. So you could spend years trying to piece it all together yourself, or you could plug into a system that's already working for our community. Check out our membership page at This Property Life. Everything you need to know is right there. Success is a team sport. Come join in. Hi, and welcome to This Property Life. I'm Nick Claydon, and I'm here with Sarah Blaney. And we are going to have an emergency debate of an emergency debate.
We are indeed. And which emergency debate are we debating?
I'm debating the emergency debate of the Diary CEO podcast that Stephen Bartlett recently did with Daniel Priestley and Gary Stevenson. Gary Stevenson is a name that keeps cropping up. I hadn't heard about him until relatively recently. Suddenly he's everywhere, and I've actually just got his book, so I'm reading that at the moment. And Gary Stevenson Trading Game, which good read so far. This was something that appeared on the Diary CEO podcast last week, I think, a few days ago, as of where we are at this moment. And it was an interesting debate about the disappearing middle class, taxing the wealthy. And we had two people on either side. So you had Daniel Priestley, who's very much a digital entrepreneur. And then you have Gary Stevenson, who's very much the tax the wealthy. So one side is kind of, you need to create your own wealth. Another one is, we need government to step in and sort this problem out. Otherwise, the economy will keep stagnating. So Gary Stevenson, don't know, he's an ex-trader, Citibank trader. So he's all right. He's pretty wealthy. But he's also an economist. He was a maths prodigy, economist, went to LSE, got a job at Citibank and was one of their most successful traders and foreign currencies, and then left. And since then, he's been kind of predicting that the economy is going to keep tanking. And the reason for that is that the wealthy pay basically no tax, and they hold assets and they hoard all their wealth, store it up in assets, which means middle classes can no longer buy the assets they used to be able to buy. Everything kind of crashes down and ends up with a very, very imbalanced economy and a stagnated economy. So that's kind of the debate that they had. A very fiery, very interesting debate, actually. And I think we had after, didn't we, Sarah? And we thought, kind of agree with both. What was your take?
Before we jump in, let's tackle one of the biggest hurdles for property investors: finding the best buy-to-let locations for top returns. Over the years, we've helped countless individuals pinpoint the most profitable locations and maximise their rental income. To make it easier for you, we've put together a free guide to buy-to-let hotspots for 2025, designed specifically for you to understand the market, stay ahead of the trends, and it even includes a list of our top 10 locations in the UK. Get it now for free by clicking the link in the description below and start building your property portfolio today. Yeah, I think it was really interesting, and both of them were really passionate speakers. Are both clearly really intelligent, really sharp guys. Gary Stevenson appears to be a champion of the people. He's talking for the single mother who's scraping by, for the 20-year-old that is struggling to get a job or to pay rent. And he seems to speak for the volume of people. And he very much, I think, identifies at that kind of level, which, it clearly is, there's majority of the UK of probably listening to what Gary Stevens says about how hard it is at the moment, and all probably going, that's me. That's how I'm feeling. That's what my state of affairs is like. So he's really took in for the majority. And Daniel Priestley, is a self-made sort of entrepreneur, successful at what he does. And he's kind of like, you've got to champion business and economic freedom so that businesses can thrive to feed everybody in the chain. And I don't think that either of them are wrong. Gary, you kind of go, yeah, like it does feel like that for a lot of people. And you listen to Dan and you think, well, yeah, of course you've got to try and motivate businesses to grow. And the UK, I think at the moment, like we've spoken about this various times, haven't we, Nick, on how difficult it is to actually do business in England and the UK. The taxes is one thing, the taxes are the taxes, and we know that that's always the way it is. It's the bureaucracy and the time and the form filling and pieces of paper that cost so much money each time you get a new piece of paper for any type of transaction in the business world, whether it's to do with our houses or just running a business generally. It's just, you get bogged down in all of this transactional rubbish.
Well, you were going to swear there, Tara.
I really was going to swear. I really had to think of a new word.
Yeah.
It took me ages. And it is quite grinding. So I actually came out of that. I watched the debate, as it got loaded that day. And I came out of it feeling a bit anxious, if I'm honest. It was quite negative in that, yes, they started off quite fiery. There were lots of individual stories and reflections on individual situations that they both knew of. But it all seemed like, from Gary's perspective, he was like, I believe in it, that we can change this and it's possible, but equally it's going to be really hard and it ain't getting any better. And actually we're going to tank more and more and more. And he just made me feel really anxious, I have to say.
Yeah, I agree. I came out of thinking, well, I kind of get both sides. I'm not normally one to sit on a fence. I do like it. I do normally take one side or the other, but this time it was like, well, they're both right and they're both a bit wrong. So, and I think it made it sound a bit too simple. Each solution was a bit simple or too general, I think, rather than simple, a bit too general. So Gary's solution is, well, you're screwed, you can't do anything. You can't do what I did. This guy, as I said, maths prodigy, got his way into the investment bank trading by winning a card game, essentially, that Citibank had set up. So he didn't go the usual route. And he's like, this route isn't open to people like me. He's from working class black background in Ilford. No one else can really do that. And I'm okay, they might not be able to do that, but they can probably do other things. So it's maybe not that simple. And then with Daniel Priestley, it's like, well, look, you need to look after yourself and set up your own Instagram profile, become a brand, create digital assets. You can go live anywhere because digital assets can go anywhere. It's like, well, great, but not everyone can do that either.
Hardly anyone can do that, either from a skill set or from a background of family and all that sort of stuff. It just isn't possible. So yeah, you're right. Daniel is talking about an action that very few can take. And Gary is basically saying, you haven't got a chance. Give up now.
So I agree with a lot of what they say, but I don't agree with a lot of their actions or solutions. Like, for example, you create digital assets, great. Well, Caroline's been building her Instagram profile. She's just under 10,000 now. And that's taken months and months and months to go from that 4,000, 10,000. I mean, you're not really anywhere on Instagram until you're over 10,000. But that's, she's been really working at that with a professional marketing person that not everyone, again, would be able to do or get, to relentlessly try and build that Instagram following. It's just not that easy at all.
And it's also something that not everyone wants to do.
I thought what we could talk about was a bit about that debate and see what our take on it was. I'm not an economist. I'm not, as smart as Gary Stevenson. I'm not an entrepreneur like Daniel Priestley. But I think we could maybe bring it down to a level for our listeners on things that we could do and things that what our take on it is and what actions we think that people could take that actually are achievable because we've seen people do it. I think that's kind of the message I want to get across is we have seen people achieve things we've taught them to do. I'm not saying they're easy to, they're not, but they are relatively simple. And anyone from lots of different backgrounds can maybe do and start creating their own future. So yeah, it was a bit depressing, because particularly if you listen to more of Gary Stevenson, which I think gets guy, but is quite relentlessly kind of, you have to rely on someone else to sort this out for you, and that someone else is the government, and the government need to tax the wealthy people. He's talking about the top 1%. He's not talking about people who got a few million in the bank. He's talking about, that is wealthy for most people, right? But he's talking about the billionaires. He's talking about companies that pay zero tax, who base themselves out of Ireland or Luxembourg so that they can pay no tax.
Yeah, which is a lot of the tech giants do exactly the same. Google's based out of Dublin, I think, and Facebook are based out of Luxembourg, I think. So yeah, we're controlled by these very few companies that are generally American born and bred, basing themselves from tax efficient for them bases. Ireland is literally booming in terms of business growth because of their attitude to corporation tax and all of that sort of stuff. So the UK is falling way behind in terms of that. And they both mentioned that, and they're both right.
Yep.
But yeah, it is Gary's saying the top 1%. And I think a lot of people might have been listening to that who were quite entrepreneurial minded, but not quite, definitely not the 1%, and thinking, don't come after me. I'm struggling enough as it is. Even just with all the bureaucracy and taxes that I've got to pay. He's not after those guys. He's not after that middle ground. Actually, he kind of he didn't stick up for the middle ground. He was very much more the working class ground, but he would stick up for the middle ground as well. But he said it's impossible. How do you tax them? Because they disappear, they go elsewhere, they're global.
And take them on. I think this is my kind of simplified take on it, is governments can't take them on because they are not equipped to do so. So they go after the easy pickings, and the easy pickings is high earners, people in good jobs, that can't move, that can't just up sticks and go to Dubai or go to wherever.
Portugal. It's Portugal, big one, isn't it?
You hear a lot about people, Daniel Priest is a lot about 10,000 millionaires leaving, or I don't know, 10,000 millionaires leaving every year or something to go to Dubai or wherever. But the middle ground can't do that. The middle class is, who are maybe just holding down to decently paid jobs, kids in school, don't want to move your kids. You can't just up sticks and go to Dubai. You can if you're Daniel Priestley and you've got digital businesses that can base anywhere, brilliant. But, how many of us are in that position? Not that many. But can we trust the government if they, let's say they came up with a way of taxing the big businesses without them all just leaving, and all the billionaires going, yeah, okay, we'll pay a wealth tax. Can we then trust the government to deal with that and to redistribute that money to where it needs to go? Because I'm not convinced.
I'm not convinced. And actually, it's not a bash the Labour government discussion, because if the Tory government had still been in power, we'd be saying the exact same.
Exactly. So
we're agnostic to the flavour of government. It's literally, they're just not capable.
They're not equipped, are they? I don't. If you look at this as old kind of side debate, which we'll try and avoid getting into, but you look at most of the politicians, they're career politicians. They've never worked in business. I know the Tories did have a few that were successful business people, but they were written off because people didn't like the fact that they were successful business people and they were too abrasive or whatever. So we kind of missed that opportunity of having people that actually really understood how business works in government, and now we haven't got anyone.
So can we trust them if it ever came to fruition, we got that tax revenue in, would it change things for average folk? I honestly believe it just wouldn't, because examples of why I think it wouldn't work. I have a commercial unit that I have been asking the VOA to reband on business rates because it's been cut up into different blocks. It's been a year. It's been a year of me asking them. and they're uncontactable, so they're unaccountable. So you can't complain. And I said to the business rates, I ended up getting a business rates specialist to try and chivvy it along. I was like, surely we can just ring up and say, what the hell, this has been a year now. And he said, no, you can't. And the consequence of that is it just goes, it's like a ball running down a hill, gathering moss. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more the time goes on. So,
and what's the impact of that on you? Because there's a real world impact on this.
Yeah, literal money, thousands out of my pocket each month, which then puts the whole tenurability of that profit, that income stream, at risk. And that there will be only a certain amount of time that most people can suck that up. It affects it affects growth in all other areas, because you're suddenly having to manage this thing that you expected to do this. And even with some, time delays, you still expected, a few months, a year.
And in reality, what is a process? It is someone needs to come out, look at your building, do an assessment, go back, do a report, and that's it, right? And make a decision. That's it. Now, is there any reason why that can be done in a week?
Exactly.
Could be done in a week.
In all honesty, they don't even have to leave their office if they don't want to. With the technology that we have today, it could be done even on a walkthrough. They know the footprint of the building. The actual footprint hasn't changed. It's literally just a couple of walls and, this, that, and the other. It could be done so simply. And, with technology, it shouldn't be like this. It's, when people are moving on to business rates from council tax, if they've got short stay serviced accommodation, and the way that they're changing the taxing on that now, and people are putting double taxation rates on council tax if you've got a short stay accommodation, so you have to move to business rates. But that process can take 9 months, 10 months, and you have to pay the double 200% council tax throughout that whole period. Then when the business rates gets put into effect, you then get that money back. What an absolute waste of time for everybody. So you're literally putting an income stream at risk because you're putting extra cost into it that you didn't need to. So for that short stay operator, their business line is at risk already. Yeah, they're going to get like some sort of, money refunded down the line. But what if they don't survive to down the line?
No good getting your money back if you've already gone bust, is it?
So then you're paying a council employee or government employee to collect and do the accounts on that double council tax. Then you're paying someone else to reverse it and pay all the money back. Like, just stop, just do it quickly.
And it's because I think, governments are so inefficient. They've got one person that does this bit of the job and one person does that bit of the job. So this person is doing their job, collecting the money. But then this person over here has got to do the other bit of the job, which is refunding it back. What's the point? It's crazy. And there's so many examples. I'm sure anyone listening to this has had their own experiences. I've documented our experiences of trying to get planning through on fairly simple change of use and listed building consents up here in Edinburgh. A year. It's like common. And you speak to our planning guy, our consultant. He's like, "This is common. You're not abnormal." Because we're like, what are we doing wrong here? Why is it taking a year? With something they actively want. It's in the planning policy. They want more hotel rooms in Edinburgh. Brilliant. Let's build hotels. Oh no, it's going to take a year to get through planning. And we don't want you to have an ensuite on that room. You've got to put an off suite on that room. Well, when have you ever been to a hotel recently where you book a room that is an ensuite? Nobody. So,
and it's not only like the delay in the time on that, which obviously adds an enormous amount of money to your cost of money in that whole process, but then you'll have to pay a few £100 to a heritage statement guy, a few £100 to the conservation guy. There's people just pushing bits of paper around and writing out invoices for £1,200 each time. And you as the business owner has to suck that up again. And, I had an email 2 hours ago, literally from the planning portal, just giving the UK's government increase to statutory planning fees. and the processing planning applications cost has gone up. So from March 25, well, so about 6 days time as we're recording, it's going to cost more to be delayed by this planning process.
Yeah. It's like they're looking for the easy tax. Well, the thing's easy, right? Okay, what's the thing at the moment? A thing at the moment is short stay accommodation, Airbnbs, right? It's been in the Daily Mail a few times, so, right, let's hammer that. That's an easy one. Let's go after that. Because that's easier than trying to go after Facebook or Amazon and get them to pay more tax. So, yeah, do we trust that if the government does do something about this and understands the Gary Stevenson idea, how is that money going to filter down to the people that actually need it or to make things more efficient? I'm just not convinced.
Yeah. So what can be done? We've got to bring this back up because we're getting as
depressed against it.
And as Gary and as Dan did, and I do not want that because that did leave me anxious. That debate, I didn't enjoy it. So yeah, let's talk about some positives.
Right. Okay. Well, some positives. Look, I firmly believe that everyone does have an opportunity to change their future. I think do have to wake up and realise that the government isn't going to save you. Gary Stevenson isn't going to save you. Okay, Daniel Priestley's not probably going to save you either. You might read some of his books and get inspired, and that's good, and that might help you to take some action. So I definitely think there are things that I'm not going to say everyone. I think that most people can do something positive to take some action. My view on this is that why try and fight something that you can't fight on your own? And that's Gary's point is, look, we need everyone involved in this, and then we've got power behind the people and we can make change. Brilliant. I totally noble idea. Love it. That's going to take a long time. Right. And we don't all have a lot of time. What can we do? I do believe that the middle class is getting squeezed. And I think you're going to end up with a society with people that own things by things of in assets and people who don't. And black and white, cut and dried, you need to be on the side of owning things.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. So you have to accept that is reality. Okay. And you got to make a decision. Do I want to own some stuff, i.e. assets, or am I resigned to the fate of being in poverty? Because I think that it will come down to that choice.
Yeah, I agree. And, there's lots of different types of assets out there that you can own. The one that we know best is property. But if there's anything that the listeners should take from this, it's just go and research something. Like just try and do something different around asset owning, whether it's property or whatever. It could be, if you're into art, could be art, watches, anything, but do something.
But also you can maybe try and own your job. Right. So here's something that I thought quite recently is that I know a friend of ours who worked for an entrepreneur for pretty much her entire working life. She was integral to his business, absolutely integral, to the point where she left twice and he literally drove to her house on his knees in front, begging her to come back, right? Because he knew he was screwed without her. And she got paid a reasonable salary, not amazing, reasonable, but she basically ran his business for him. And we kind of, after she'd retired, finally, we thought finally, we went for dinner with them and she'd said that this guy had called her again and again begged her to come back. And we said, have you not thought, or why don't you sounds a bit, I don't like, do you know what I mean? He said, maybe if that was me, I might have said, okay, I'll come back, but I want a percentage.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than pay me more, give me a percentage of profits, or give me a percentage of the company. Give me something that is more than just his salary. If you value me that much, if your business literally is screwed without me, I want to own it. I don't want to get paid more. And I think this is a mindset that a lot of people don't think about, is about being a high earner or owning a piece. There's a great example. I've thought of another example of this, right? So got a couple of examples. Vincent Price. So anyone as old as me will remember Michael Jackson's album Thriller. They got Vincent Price to do the voiceover on the single Thriller on the track. He was offered a choice of 20 grand fee income now or percentage. Which one do you reckon he took?
Did he take the single figure? Yeah, what a mistake.
He did. He took the single figure because he needed 20 grand. He thought, well, I'll take the 20 grand.
Yeah.
And obviously,
Where could he have been now?
successful album, albums all
Well,
time.
wasn't Michael Jordan's negotiations with Nike? Everyone else had done exactly that. They'd taken the figure, and it was like an annual figure that you would get paid from Nike, fixed figure. And Michael Jordan and his parents actually negotiated the percentage of sales, and the rest is history in terms of the wealth of that guy. George Foreman, who died recently, the world-renowned boxer, after he retired, he was asked to put his name to the famous grill, and that made him more money than his whole boxing career.
Another one like that, Roger Federer was asked to invest in the Swiss brand On. Not that long ago, after he'd retired, pretty much towards the end of his career. He's made more money by being an investor in On than he did through his entire tennis career. That's crazy, because he was like, the best, right? He made hundreds of millions of dollars for his tennis career. He's made more money out of On than he has out of that whole tennis career by owning a piece of On, right? There's countless examples. Sylvester Stallone is another great example. He wrote the script to Rocky back in 1973 or 4, whatever it was. He owned that script. He wrote it. It's his, but it was nothing until somebody bought it. He got offered $200,000, which at the time, he was penniless. He was so penniless, he had to sell his dog, right? Somebody offered him $200,000 for the script, which even in 1973 is relatively worth. It's kind of like millions now. And he said, "No, not unless I'm going to be. Not unless I play Rocky." They're like, "No, we could get someone else to play Rocky." And he needed 200 grand, like you would not believe. And he said no, because he knew he needed to own it. So he kept the rights to Rocky. He negotiated that he would play Rocky. He would own the rights to Rocky. And that has made him, that one decision by owning the rights to Rocky has made him more money than anything else he's ever done. There's so many examples like that. And again, if you read lots of this kind of stuff that we recommend you read, you'll pick up on these stories. But it comes down to that for me, is ownership. You've got to own some assets. Yeah. And that, as I said, that could be your job. If you're integral to the operations of a business, go and negotiate ownership. There's probably a lot of people go, "Oh, we can't do that." Oh, can't you?
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to back yourself and go, "Actually, I know that I run this company. I know that they can't do it without me. So instead of a pay rise, because you're going to get taxed on that pay rise, on income tax, give me a piece."
Yeah, really valid point. And then, outside of that type of owning assets, yes, there's property. That's what we do. And we've seen lots of people come through over the years and start in property and really just accelerate and be in a position 5 years down the line that has transformed their life. And a lot of them don't give up work. A lot of people do not give up their PAYE salary. Some of them do, but a lot don't. But they've got this safety net behind them, which is brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah, I got a friend of mine. He's came through our system, and he had that wake up call of he's a high earner, decent, good earner, 6-figure earner, mid 6 figures. People that'll be, well, he's all right. He's rich. And whilst he's well off, he does all right. He knew that he needed some assets. So he's just now into start buying some houses and start to kind of ramp up that asset base that he's got. So he knows that when he retires in a few years' time, that he's built that income stream, and he's turned that kind of income wealth into long-term asset building wealth. It's brilliant. I think there's a lot of people out there that also might listen to this and go, "Well, look, it's all very well, but I can't buy a house. Houses are really expensive. Average house prices are like 300 grand. What do you say to that?"
Well, they're not everywhere, are they?
Not in South Wales, they're not. Not in Yorkshire, they're not. Not in Burnley, they're not.
Yeah, exactly. Not in Ayrshire.
Not in Ayrshire. No. It's really easy to find excuses not to do stuff, but I think that's what it comes down to. Is the bottom line is got to be owners of things, assets, business, property, IP, knowledge. If you can, own a piece of work that's yours, you can license. There's loads of ways, loads of different types of asset base that you can own.
But yeah, just get out there and do something, because as Gary says, it's only getting worse.
It's only getting worse, and
You've got to do something.
Yeah, exactly. You can try and fight the system. Brilliant. Good luck. But nothing's changing anytime soon. So you've got to help yourself, I think.
Yeah. And to be fair, we can do both at the same time. So, you can, because Gary talks a lot of sense. What he says is right. So go and do what Gary's suggesting, like join his movement, and, together people can do amazing things. Whilst that's happening, do something for yourself as well, and try and build up your asset base in whatever asset you choose, the one that resonates the most with you. I think that for me is the only thing you can do, unless you want to just, give it all up and go to a remote island and just worry about food for the day, which sometimes that sounds really, really appealing.
Well, I was watching that one of the programs about I think I mentioned before, Ed Stafford, who goes and lives, somewhere for a week and learns how to thrive in an extreme environment. There's one way it really makes you stick in the Thailand jungle when he's got this little shack he's built. He's got a stream with fish in it, built a fire, and he's really happy. I thought, that sounds nice. Just another thing to worry about, but catching a fish for the day and having a nice fire, quite appealing.
Yeah. Right. Well, we'll go and research that next then, Nick. So yeah, so if you haven't caught the debate that Gary Stevens and Dan Priestley did on Diary of a CEO, go look it up. I think even as I was watching it on the first day it got released, I could just see the view number go up and up and up by thousands every sort of minute, really. I think it's been a very, very popular episode for Stephen Bartlett. Not that he didn't, he facilitated it really, and that's all he did. But yeah, go watch it. But then also think about what you can do. Don't listen to Gary in terms of it's over, we're doomed, there's nothing you can do. I think his message is right in terms of where we are and what's going to continue. But I don't agree with his message that we're all screwed and there's nothing we can do about it.
Agreed. Yeah. So, if you want to find out more from us, you can find us at thispropertylife.co.uk. We do have a community of like-minded investors, anyone interested in property and all things property. We run regular networking meetings. Come join us, come see us. Look forward to seeing you there and seeing you on the next podcast.